Joining me now, Tasmanian Senator Eric Abetz, who of course keeps a very, very close eye on what's going on in Beijing. Now, Eric, Beijing's broadcast of this provocative tweet is now the latest flashpoint, if you like, in a relationship rocked by a growing diplomatic divide. There's been, well, universal outrage and condemnation today, the likes of which I think I haven't seen in Australian politics for some time. What's your take on it, Senator?
Well, I think the take of every Australian is that it's belligerent, it's immature, it's unacceptable, it's offensive. All sorts of descriptors can be used to describe what the Chinese Foreign Ministry has done with this tweet. It needs to be withdrawn and we need an apology. But this is indicative of the thinking of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, and it's the thinking to the very top levels of government.
Senator Abetz, I would think that we would put our humanitarian record, Australia's humanitarian record, up against basically any authoritarian regime in the world, including Russia, who have also been critical, I see, of the Brereton report, but in particular China. I mean, China have got an appalling record in this area.
Anything that might be alleged against our servicemen in Afghanistan, one, is an allegation at this stage, and even if it were to be proven, it is a very small minority of the servicemen and clearly not state-sanctioned. What the Chinese Communist dictatorship do, they have 1 million of their own citizens in concentration camps. You've got house Christians, Falun Gong practitioners, pro-democracy people, all locked up as we speak. And there's that old biblical proverb of saying that you should remove the boulder out of your own eye or the plank out of your own eye before you seek to remove the speck out of your brother's eye. And I think that is a very apt saying for our Chinese friends to consider and reflect upon.
Senator, this particular tweet has come from essentially the Foreign Affairs spokesman in Canberra. I mean, it's one of those tweets that, as I said, it's become a flashpoint. Do you believe that the very highest echelons of Beijing would have ratified this particular tweet? This wouldn't have been a rogue tweet from a bloke who's just angry with Australia right now. This would have been properly vetted and sanctioned by Beijing?
That is what one assumes. We've had other things come out of the Chinese embassy in Australia in recent times, which puts Beijing in not a good light, let's be polite. In those circumstances, you would have thought if the regime, if the dictatorship were concerned about their representative in Australia, they would have put some restrictions on him. That clearly has not occurred. Therefore, we can only assume that it is sanctioned. Furthermore, if it wasn't sanctioned, you would have thought the Foreign Ministry in Beijing would have immediately come out, apologised and recalled their ambassador back to Beijing. Given that all that has not happened, we can only make the one assumption, and that is why the Prime Minister's reaction is so appropriate.
Indeed. Senator Abetz, the other thing that I think it's important we get on the record here is that Australia relies very heavily on China for trade, and of course we've seen sanctions in recent weeks that have affected barley, wine. We're about to speak to a leading wine producer about the impacts of that, meat. There's been a whole range of sanctions that have been applied. Is it time that we had a real diversification strategy, a proper, measured, considered, well-researched diversification strategy to wean ourselves off this type of bullying and punitive action that these guys are engaging in?
Absolutely, Peter. We should never have allowed ourselves to get into this situation. There's that old conservative saying, don't put all your eggs into the one basket, and the consequences are there for all to see in the event that you fall over. In the case with China, we are now having real issues with our trade, and that is why having a diversified market is so vitally important, and that is where I, for one, have been seeking to develop and encourage further trade with India, getting foreign investment from other sources such as the United Arab Emirates. We need to diversify our foreign investment in Australia and also our export markets. And this has been a wake-up call, I would have thought, for absolutely everybody to ensure that we've always got a plan B for our products and we sell to a diversity of markets. So if somebody like China tries to pull it on, we are not 100% compromised. And within some sectors, we are nearly 100% compromised, because with some products, over 90% of the produce we make in Australia actually goes to China.
All right. Good to talk to you tonight, Senator Abetz. Always great to see you.
Thank you very much for having me.